claims that he had no choice. He needed to do this illegal invasion into Ukraine to root out the Nazis and liberate the Ukrainian people. Fact of the matter is, while there are some Nazi groups in Ukraine, they are not such a problem, such a huge security risk or threat to Russia that it would justify some sort of invasion into Ukraine. Now, when it comes to Ukraine's history with Nazis, I do think it's worth noting that during World War II, Ukraine was one of the countries where Jewish people were brutalized and murdered as a result of Nazis. Ukraine wasn't completely free of that. So that's part of its history. It's worth acknowledging. Another thing to acknowledge is the so-called battalion, the Azov battalion, that keeps getting referenced by right-wingers and even some leftists as a genuine issue within Ukraine. And the fact of the matter is, the Azov battalion wasn't even an issue until Putin decided to annex Crimea. This was a battalion that formed and really grew as a result of what Putin did with that annexation. But over the last 5 years, they've actually lost a lot of support within Ukraine, and their attempts to become a part of the Ukrainian government, a real influence within the Ukrainian government, has really failed. So bad faith actors, again, say that this is a real thing. In fact, the Azov battalion has been absorbed. This is one kernel of truth that's worth knowing. They've been absorbed within the Ukrainian National Guard. But it's similar to what we see in the United States military or within local police departments, where you have neo-Nazis, white nationalists, and all sorts of unsavory figures getting absorbed into legitimate law enforcement, right? So should we be invaded? I would argue no. I would argue the American people would not take kindly to another country invading our sovereign country with the excuse of rooting out Nazis within law enforcement.
Can I just interrupt for one quick second on that? So we saw the Nazis march in Charlottesville, Virginia, and they chanted blood and soil and the Jews will not replace us. Then they killed someone, they attacked a synagogue. We saw all of that happen. So should we have, under that logic, attacked Virginia? And who should have attacked Virginia?
Yeah, which country should invade us?
Yeah, should it be Mexico that attacks Virginia because America has too many neo-Nazis in it? Or should it be North Carolina or Maryland that attacks Virginia because it has too many neo-Nazis in it? And one rhetorical trick that they do that you should be aware of, and it's particularly craven, is when you point out that every country has neo-Nazis and that's not a reason to invade it, they go, oh, are you defending neo-Nazis? No, that's absurd. We despise the Nazis. But under that logic, you would invade us. You wouldn't. There are neo-Nazis almost in every country. Should we go and invade Indonesia? It is such an obvious BS talking point directed to try to distract you from the actual violence and killing that the Russians are doing of the Ukrainians.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So for anyone who refused to give any credibility to that argument, it's not because they're running away from having to address Nazi elements within Ukraine. It's because it was a BS excuse and a lie that Putin used to justify his illegal invasion into Ukraine. And let me just say, if you're a leftist and you're like, why isn't anyone talking about the Azov battalion? Why aren't you talking about the Azov battalion? We could talk about that, sure. But I do find it interesting that it's all about addressing that without, honestly, without being very clear about the fact that this is an invasion that should be condemned. It's an illegal invasion. That should be the starting point. The starting point should be, this is a BS piece of propaganda from Putin. It is not the reason why he's invading, and this invasion should be condemned. With that said, though, is there some truth to Nazi elements within Ukraine? Sure. I just find it super curious that people want to discuss that right now. But fine, we're discussing it. We're discussing it right now. Eastern Europe overall, every Eastern European country has a problem with neo-Nazis, okay? But the question is, are they representative of the governments in these Eastern European countries? Are they controlling the policies, including the foreign policy coming from these Eastern European countries? Is this really a giant factor within the government of Ukraine? And the answer is unequivocally no, it is not. Now, while it got absorbed into the Ukrainian National Guard in order to fight Russian forces in eastern Ukraine, fact of the matter is they have no real political power. In fact, they got less than 3% of the vote in the latest parliamentary elections. So there you have it. We're having a discussion about the Nazi elements. Does that justify Russia invading Ukraine? I want the leftists to answer that question. I want them to answer it.
Yeah, I don't know if I guess they think they're leftists supporting brutal regimes as they murder Ukrainians. That's not at all left. That's an idiotic position to have. And so in this case, Idaho has a significant neo-Nazi camp inside of Idaho. And if you took the Nazi per capita percentage in Idaho versus Ukraine, I'm afraid what you would find. I'm afraid that Idaho might have a higher percentage. So are all of those so-called leftists and the right wing talking about how we have to invade Idaho and we have to kill the governor of Idaho who's a Republican and make sure we denazify Idaho? I'd like to denazify Idaho through ideology, through rational means, but invasion, are you meant to? Who's invading?
Well, I mean.
But in this case, you're trying to, of course the ironic thing here is, in case you haven't figured it out, Putin is doing exactly what the Nazis did. Oh, well, we have Germans in the Sudetenland and in all over Europe, and we have to protect the ethnic Germans. It's literally what Putin is saying. He's saying the same exact thing. Take out the German, put in the Russian, and we had to cross the borders. We had to do it to protect the Russians and to protect the homeland. And it's the Nazi playbook 101.
Well, I love that you brought up Putin and maybe some of the issues that Russia has with the very thing that they're trying to root out in Ukraine. Russia is the big daddy of Nazi issues. Okay, so for instance, and again, every Eastern European country unfortunately has this problem. The United States has this problem. Now, the Russian imperial movement is an extreme right, white supremacist militant organization based where? In St. Petersburg, Russia. Oh, fascinating. Something else that's pretty relevant to this. Well, are Nazis applauded, accepted by government officials in Russia? That's important, right? A guy named Dmitry Utkin helped start Russia's Wagner mercenaries. He's been awarded medals of honor by Putin. Utkin is a full-blown neo-Nazi with Waffen SS tattoos to prove it. And there is evidence of the Wagner Brigade is chock full of radical white nationalist militants. So great. So does that mean that we should advocate for the invasion of Russia because there are Nazi elements within Russia?
The leftists told us we have to be against anyone who has Nazis, and approved by the president. My God, we have to denazify Russia right now. Should we launch the nukes? I mean, look, I'm using your stupid logic. And so when you have a guy acting like the Nazis and Putin, and he gives medals to Nazis, and then you claim that maybe it's not such a bad thing that he invades because he's denazifying Ukraine. How do we denazify the Nazis? Which is what the Russian government is doing right now. And you want to cry a tear for the Russian government, I don't care. Go cry. Oh my God, the young Turks, they won't kiss Russian ass. They won't kiss Putin's ass. Oh my God. Good, yes, you're right, we won't, because we're journalists. We actually care about what's true and what's not true. He invaded Ukraine. He's butchering those people right now while you go around, do some BS. You think pseudo-intellectual, you think you're intellectuals? Pseudo-intellectual circle jerk. Yeah. Oh yeah, did you know America also has Nazis? Oh, I'm the only one who figured that out. Did you know Ukraine has some Nazis? Maybe we should just let Russia take it. I'm such an intellectual. No, you're a moron. So, okay, now I have to be clear. In case you still didn't get it, okay? Back when the Nazis were in Ukraine, actual Nazis led by Adolf Hitler, they rounded up a Jewish family in Ukraine. They shot the mom and the dad and 3 out of the 4 brothers. They killed them all. The one remaining brother is the grandfather of President Zelensky. He's the leader of Ukraine. The Nazis murdered his family. Ukraine is not led by Nazis. That is deeply, deeply offensive to imply that. I don't care if you're a right winger or if you think you're a left winger. That's a terrible thing to say. It's not remotely true. So stop lying to your audience, to your viewers, and to your readers. There's someone acting just like the Nazis, and it ain't the Ukrainians, and it certainly isn't Zelensky. It's the Russians. So now you say, oh no, you can't do it. Look, I love the Russian people. Those Russian protesters are the bravest people on earth. The Russian reporters are the bravest people on earth. So don't come at me with your fake talking points about, oh, how can you be against the Russians? No, we're against the Russian government led by the tyrant, Vladimir Putin. You defend Putin, you're not. Don't ever, ever say that you're on the left. You're not on the left. You're supporting a guy who gives medals to Nazis for being Nazis. Okay, two can play at that game. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.